Charlie. You made it at the beginning today. That's awesome. How did it work this time? Did your alarms kick in? Ah, I'm here, you're here. Already I'm doing better. Yes. Okay. Settling in. I'm like, okay. Wow, this song. I know. I got you early with my starting soon trick. Mwahaha. Mwahaha. I was just wrapping something up. I'm super excited I get to share it today. Oh, Charlie, you're the best. You are the best. Yeah, so hi. Hi. Gosh, I needed to like pause before I was like going, and then I'm here and I kind of haven't settled. So that's cool. You get to watch me settle today. I don't know what that even means. But life is good. You know what? So I was talking to Upright Oracle and on her birthday, and she basically brought something to mind that like seemed like a really good idea that I want to like try maybe doing today. Hi, Eddie dude. Oh, it is Friday. Wow, I was thinking it was Tuesday. You just made my day, Eddie dude. That is right. It is Friday. Weekend is almost upon us. Which, yes. I'm playing Clash this weekend. League of Legends. Anybody else? I know Yeti Dude's doing it. I do what I can. It's the little ways you make me happy that make the relationship work. Like keeping me sane and reminding me what day it is. Yes. So like every several weeks, I don't know, the schedule changes. League of Legends does Clash, which lets normal people pretend they're professional players and play in tournaments, and it's pretty fun. Good. Yeah. Have you? Have you what, Charlie? Yes, I have. Yeah, so I was telling you about Upright. So she's one of my oldest friends. She's often here. She's like just a really inspiring person. And so on her birthday, we were, parts of it I have. Yeah, I think I saw the first season. Yeah. So I like the moment you said good place, I was like, I think I know where you're going. Cause that is like, I get that quite frequently, and it's always like, it always really surprises me because I don't see it, but there's gotta be something to it because I keep getting that. Yeah. Maybe if I need a new job, I can maybe be her stand-in. I bet the good place. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? Yeah, she's entertaining for sure. Oh, she could be mine? Dude, wouldn't that be amazing if I was like, surprise, here's Kristen Bell doing my stream today. If I only had that kind of pull. One of these days. I do want to meet her. I think that would just be really, really fun. Yes. Gosh. What was... Oh, yeah. So I'm kind of like stumbling through this because it's like forming as I speak it. But essentially, Upright Oracle was talking about how, wouldn't it be cool if we talked, like, share, just in general, not like we specifically, but in general, we as people, shared more of like our little victories as a way of acknowledging them for ourselves. So like I was thinking, like, so as she was talking about it, I was like interpreting it and like translating it into like what I've come to know about us and our well-being and how it works. But I was like, oh, we have a negativity bias, right? So I think part of what that means is we undervalue the constructive or good choices that we make, and then we like overblow our not so good choices and use that as a way to like punish ourselves, right? Like we become like ashamed or like we should on ourselves and all that stuff that just is like gross. But we all do it. So she was like, yeah, but what if like kind of like a gratitude practice, we did like a celebration practice too, where it really doesn't take very much time, but it like by saying something like, today I was victorious when I XYZ or X. By doing that, we're basically reworking and like challenging our negativity bias and hopefully bringing in more like actual perspective on the truth of where we're at and how we're behaving. Because basically we just undervalue or we ignore all the data that says, hey, you're actually doing a pretty good job. So I was like, dude, this is really intriguing, because if we combine that, it's essentially a celebration practice, which like our research and the things we've talked about show like actually means something. It like helps increase our positive emotions, helps us bond with people, all those kind of things. So all of that is to say, I think we're gonna add on a question to our gratitude practice around like what we were victorious doing. And it can be really, really simple things, right? Like it doesn't have to be these major victories. Some days it's like oh gosh, now I can't think of anything. That's how strong my negativity bias is, but it's like, today I went for a walk and that felt like a win, or I was gonna eat an entire bag of potato chips, but I stopped myself halfway through, or, right, like I only had one Twinkie. Whatever it is that is your thing that you're working with, I don't know. This sounds like there's something there that could be cool. Charlie, you're so lovely. Whenever I need a confidence boost, I'm just gonna message you on Discord. Nothing positive, nothing. I don't know, like of course, I would argue that you're here, and because of like what I always put you guys through, you do things. You are doing things, like, right? Like you participated last Tuesday, this Tuesday. I don't know. See, I think our biases are strong. Like we really like to find fault with ourselves, and we undervalue the stuff that works well, or like we get acclimated to it. Like maybe you're doing stuff that you didn't used to do, but you've made it a habit, and so now you don't appreciate the change, right? Like there's all these ways that we do this to ourselves. Yeah. Yes. I'm basically calling BS, Charlie. I bet there's something. That being said, I'm trying to think of mine from yesterday, and I can't. So it's not easy. I think that's why it's like we're onto something, right? Like it is not easy for our brains. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, but what about like internally, right? Like stuff is still going on in our heads. Yeah. So let's start by like doing part of our gratitude practice, and that can be then the victory. I do that too. I spend mucho time on bed binge watching. It's so pleasurable, at least for a while. So okay, what was the best thing that happened yesterday? It may be super small, right? Like it may be my internet worked and I got to binge watch, right? Like, hey, what I would like to appreciate about yesterday, which was Thursday, Ooh, this is really hard for me. Yesterday was not like my best day. This is good. What was yesterday? What did I do? So I was insanely tired, but I still showed up. Hey, fairy guard mother. Aw, it's nice to see you, and you're helping me out. Oh, you got time with your best friend, Charlie. That's lovely. Was it Nico? Nico's my best friend. Oh, best friends are so special. Yeah. Now I'm like enjoying going into best friend La La Land in my imagination, so I don't have to think about my gratitude practice. Oh, yes. Okay, so... Oh yeah, Thursday. Okay, I'm now grounding it. So yeah, I was really tired, but I still showed up to the things that were important to me, and I guess there's like... I have gratitude in that, right? In the grace to just show up even when we're not at our best. So yeah, I guess I'm grateful for myself yesterday. Whoa. Fancy. A grumpy bag? I want a grumpy bag as an emote. That's so cute. Charlie, you have the cutest way of expressing yourself. How's your, have you worked yet on your follow-up game to the potato game? I want it. No pressure, but pressure. Because I want it. Yeah. Okay. So, what are... Oh. That's good. There's a time and place for it all, right? Like you might be in that like creative rest state where things are happening. Right? Right, fairy guard mother? Me too. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just a grumpy bag. Oh, thank you for the host, Zeke. Thank you. I don't know why I don't get my alerts. This is so sad. I work so hard on them, and they haven't been working. They haven't worked hard back. What is up with that? There should be a little quid pro quo. All right, I can worry about that later. Right now, I'm focusing on gratitude. I'm really scattered today, you guys. Yeah, so what are like 3 things right now that you are grateful for? I am, of course, grateful that you're here. I always say that, but I always mean it. I can't not say it because I feel it. I am grateful for like unscheduled space. Yeah. Oh, that I'm not grateful for that. No. Nice weather, great breakfast, my kids and wife. Oh, Mr. Scott, way to just like swoop on in there with some loveliness. I am really grateful for cherries because I have them on my tree and they're delicious. I've gotten several harvests out of it, which was way better than last year. Last year, the fruit flies ate them all. So yeah, me too with that food thing. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. Yeah, so we're doing our gratitude practice. We'll do our awareness power up, which is 5 minutes of meditation. Well, we never know what's gonna come out as I guide it. It's always a discovery in the moment. I am making it up, like most of this. And yeah. And oh yeah, and then we are diving into the Science of Wellbeing course. There's another video we're gonna watch about how we've learned about kind of how we miswant things, which means we're wanting things, like our brains are fallible and they often want things that aren't actually gonna boost our well-being. And so now that she's kind of like laid out the picture of how our brains don't work in our best interest, she's giving us tools and ideas about how to trick them, right? Like not trick them, how to overcome those like mental hurdles we all have because our brains are biased against our well-being in certain ways. Ooh, more gratitude, bring it! I am grateful for the new short sleeve orange hoodie I got today. Oh my gosh. I want a summer hoodie. That sounds amazing. The cover to the Pringles can. Yes. And the opportunity to be here. Even though you're still a grumper. A grumpy bag. Charlie, that is becoming an emote one of these days. I'm actually writing it down. A grumpy bag. Look, I'm using my big purple Sharpie. It's actually a Twitch Sharpie. Isn't that lovely? Because, you know, who among us is not at some point a grumpy bag? Oh, that is powerful, that scent. Oh no, I forgot to write emote on it. Grumpy bag emote. What I love is that your grumpiness is bringing me gifts. Thank you so much. You should be grumpy all the time. What else are we grateful for, guys? What else? This is the most powerful when it's something that you're not responsible for. Though, like, for sure, if you're someone who doesn't acknowledge your awesomeness, absolutely you can do that. Evidence just shows gratitude is the most powerful when we focus on things that are outside of our control. Yeah, so it boosts our positive emotions. It helps counter what's called hedonic adaptation, which just means we get used to the good stuff and no longer appreciate it, but they're still there. And gratitude lets us appreciate them once again. And it helps us balance out our brains that are always looking for what's not working instead of what is. Better at miswanting than gratitude. That's true for most of us. But we're changing that bit by bit. Bit by bit, day by day, little by little. There's a quote that I love. I don't know, I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like one of the parts in The Lord of the Rings is like, you know, step by step, one travels far. Which is so true. We often are like looking for those big moments, but the opportunity is there every single second of the day to make a different choice, to begin again, all that good stuff. All right, so what 3 things would make today good? Now this is where you do want to ask yourself, what can I control that would make today good for me? So, yeah, when I have some unscheduled time today, I just want to like lean into it and like savor it and not make it busy. I want to just like let it kind of anchor me and let my mind get quiet. I've been thinking way too much lately and plugged in way too much. So I'm gonna unplug, you guys. That will make today great. Oh, gardening is a good way to unplug. Playtime with the kids. Can them gardening count as playtime? You get work out of them at the same time that you're playing. Oh. All right, so I want to... There's another question here. It's a new question. What was one victory, big or small, that you did yesterday? One victory, big or small. Mine was that I shared my victory with a friend. That was my biggest win for the day, and I will take it. Oh, guys. And if you really want to celebrate, because, you know, it boosts your well-being, all that kind of stuff, we have a celebration power-up right below me. Gives me a chance to do a shout-out for you if there's something you want the community to know about. Yeah, so while you guys are doing that, I'm going to fire up this video, and we'll just dive in. Oh, but first, something else I made. All right. So I just made this. So let's watch it. I wanted to make a demo of our on-demand coaching support line, TMG Connect, that we're currently testing. You're all invited to participate. Our bot is generating a link on how you can participate. You'll see it every, 20 minutes or something like that. But I just made a user experience, like demo, and I'm kind of proud of it. It's super simple. I'm still proud of it, so I'm going to share it, and it's only a minute, so you're going to put up with it. Thank you. Oh, I don't know if you can see this stuff you need to see. Oh, yes, you can. It's so happy. The music's just so happy. Going to miss one more things today. Oh. This was me talking to myself. It was fun to do. This is me typing. Typing. Super simple! Oh no, we don't need to watch more videos. No. I mean, we are gonna watch more videos, just not more of my videos. We only need to do so much of that in a single day. Oh, thanks, Charlie. Right? It's not too bad. It's simple. You know, I figure start, get it out there, make it better over time, like most of my life. Oh, I see my grumpy bag emote note and it makes me happy. All right, I wish I was an artist because then I could just make it myself. So yeah, guys, the Science of Wellbeing course, it's free right now. It's from Yale, it's on Coursera. We've been working through it, and so far, I really recommend it. It basically takes the best evidence-based or the strongest findings out of positive psychology and gives it to us kind of this amazing, we don't have to do all the work to research it all. It's here, done. This is what works best. These are our recommendations. So it's pretty cool. I don't know. See, that's the problem, Charlie. That is my problem. I don't know how it would look, because if I knew how it would look, I figure I could do it. But my brain doesn't work that way. It's more I feel it, you know? Yes. I don't know. If I think about it, maybe I'll stumble my way into an answer. But yeah. I don't know if my brain works that way. Or at least not very well. Oh my goodness. I'm tired still. What's up with that? So yeah, like I was saying, our brains are basically miswired in a lot of sense, where they our brains are there to keep us alive, right? It's natural selection and evolution, but a lot of the things that have helped our species survive don't necessarily build up well-being in us, right? Whether or not we were happy or thriving in life wasn't important to our species. It was whether or not we could survive long enough to have kids, right? So there are things about our brain, the way it's structured, the way it works, that aren't in our best interest. And that's, that kind of sucks. And yet we're getting more and more aware of these thinking traps or these biases and these frustrating features, as this course refers to them. And the more we know about them, then we can counter them. And so she's talked a lot about miswanting. So we basically intuitively want things that we think will increase our well-being, and then they don't. And we don't know why, we're disappointed, and then we just keep miswanting more things in this never-ending failing chase to get something that will actually boost our well-being. So last time on Tuesday, we looked at all the ways that we miswant a better job. And the things we tend to go for, like making more money, having more power, those kinds of things, are miswantings. They're like false positives. They're not really going to bring you what you're looking for. And instead, she encouraged us to cultivate jobs and work that are like allow us to use our signature strengths. If you don't know what yours are, there's a power up beneath me. And also ones that let us experience flow, which there's a lot of information online about what that is if you're not familiar with it. But it's basically, it's that moment where you're in the zone around something, you lose track of time, you lose sense of your ego, and you're just in this like pleasurable experience where your skill level like pretty much matches the challenge. It's like just a little bit underneath the challenge so that there's a little bit of a tension there. So yeah, so that's, if you look at work that way, it ends up boosting your well-being much, much, much more than the ways we typically are looking for a job. And so she's going to do a similar wizardry based on science to good grades. And some of us aren't like in school anymore, right? Some of us are. So for those of us that aren't in school, I haven't watched this yet, but I highly, highly believe, I highly suspect, I should say, that good grades is just an example of how the suggestion she's about to share with us, the like solution to this miswanting that we have around grades, can be applied to anything that we're trying to master in life, anything we're trying to get better at, or anything that we would like to get better at. So it's applicable to all of us, I believe. We'll find out. I'm the boss of the miswanting department. That's my job. So in other words, Charlie, if any of us are like, gosh, I don't know if I'm miswanting something, we should just ask you because you're an expert. That's adorable. Yes. I like your sense of humor, Charlie, quite a bit. So yeah, so that's my big old spiel. Let's just do it and see what comes of this and what we think about it. I may pause it from time to time as things occur to me and I think that we might want to chat about something. So here we go.
Now we're gonna do
oh, no, not here we go. Stop. Stop. Half of the time I remember to boost the volume. Half of the time I don't. Okay, this should work. Nope.
Which is what you should want in the context of your learning goals here in terms of whether you should be shooting for good grades. Like, how should you be participating in your own learning while you're here at Yale? And just a reminder about good grades, because I feel like even though I've showed you this graph a few times already, it's important to hit home. What we're seeing is that just getting good grades doesn't make us happier. Just a reminder, this fantastic LEVINE et al. Study where they had people predict how you're going to feel if you get a grade that's lower and higher than you expect on this scale. Just a reminder, what happens is that people mispredict. They predict that if they get a grade that's higher than expected, they're going to be really high on that scale. If they get a grade that's lower than expected, they're going to be really low. But what actually happens is pretty much no difference.
Whoa.
I'd say this again because like you guys are just about to go into midterms. My guess is if I asked you your predictions, you would be falling prey to this very effect, but it's just not true. Your predictions are off. And so we've seen that grades are not the thing to focus on, but what is? There's a second reason that grades are a bad thing to focus on. It doesn't make us as happy as we think. But it turns out that focusing on grades also does something else that we probably don't like, which is that it steals away the deep motivation we have for learning about stuff in general.
Ooh.
So probably most of you guys who are Yale students at some point back in the day were like this little girl where you like read these books just like to learn this stuff and you thought this stuff was super cool. And somewhere along the way, this became the thing that people started complaining about on Facebook about how much they like disliked this stuff. Like, what happened? And well, what happened was that we set up structures for you guys that allowed you not to do these kinds of cool learning things just for the love of learning. It allowed you to do them for a different motivational factor, which was something external to the situation. And so psychologists define these kinds of motivators as in two categories. You can think of extrinsic motivations, which is that you want to engage in a behavior in part to get some external reward, be it a grade or to avoid a punishment. Like you're doing it because somebody else is giving you some outside motivation to do it.
Yep. Yep.
Or you could do different tasks because you have an intrinsic motivation. You just do it because you like it. right? Probably those of you who went on the ski trip yesterday didn't go on the ski trip because someone paid you to do it, because you knew you're going to get a good grade, or it was just like fun to go on the ski trip, right? The idea is that these things that are internally motivated, no one has to pay us to do them. They're just kind of fun in and of themselves. At some point, for all of you, learning was that kind of thing. It was just fun in and of itself to do this stuff. But the presence of these external motivators might have a kind of counterintuitive effect. It might steal the intrinsic motivation, kind of move all the motivation to the extrinsic side.
Don't steal the motivation.
Well, if you've taken intro psych, you've probably heard about a super famous study on motivation by DECI back in the 1970s. He picked an activity that people find kind of intrinsically motivating, like playing with this, like it's called a soma puzzle, where you have to kind of put all the blocks together to make a square. It's kind of hard to do, so people get really into it and they like want to play with it to see how many blocks they can get together. And he asked the question, would giving people some evaluation, some grade, or some extrinsic motivation affect how much they like doing it on their own? And so here is how the task was set up. Subjects came in to do this puzzle, and they did it over 3 visits. In the first visit, it was the same for everybody. Everybody just did the puzzle for free. In the second visit, though, the people were split into 2 conditions. Half of them were paid $1 to do this puzzle, which in the 70s was like, you know, more money than it is now, but not like an astronomical amount of money. You're not getting paid very much, but you get paid to do it. Other people, there was no mention of money. You just did the puzzle for free.
So does
and then everybody comes back on visit 3, and nobody's paid anymore. I think they actually tell the subjects like, oh, we ran out of money the subjects in the first condition, they say, oh, we ran out of money this time, so like, you know, we can't pay you, but you know, you can just do it if you want to do it. And the question is, did the payment affect people's motivation on time 3? Presumably people are at chance on how much they would like this puzzle normally. Does the payment mess them up? And so here's what you find if you look at the amount of seconds everybody works in the payment condition and the no payment condition. At the first start in the intro, everybody's doing it for about the same amount of time. If anything, the paid people are doing it even more time. So maybe they happen to like it a little bit more. When you actually get paid to do it, you see the effect of incentives that everybody expects, which is that if I'm paying you to do this, you're probably going to do this for even longer than you did before. But the real question that's relevant for motivation is what happens at time 3 when you come back and you're not getting paid if you're in the first condition. And what you find is that those individuals dip down to a pretty substantial degree. They don't want to do it anymore because it's no longer internally fun just to play with this puzzle. Having that external motivation is actually killing your internal motivation to enjoy this thing that you used to like before.
How do we get rid of external motivation?
And so this is the sad thing about extrinsic motivators, is that they seem to have the capacity to undermine your intrinsic motivation. Why are we talking about this in the context of grades? As you get more and more obsessed about what that grade is, as you care about it because it matters for your internship or it matters for you to get into medical school and so on, it's stripping away the very love of learning that probably got you here in the first place, which is kind of sad if like one of your goals is probably not just to get a good job and do all that stuff, but to like learn some interesting things while you're here at college. And so I think the kind of focus on grades that students have nowadays might be really undermining intrinsic motivation in an important way. And so kind of finding a way to get rid of grades as your focus can probably help your motivation. And the consequence is like you'll just like doing this stuff for the fact of doing this stuff, which is probably much more fun than that reverse. But it turns out that a focus on grades can do something else that leads to a mindset that's particularly problematic. Because in addition to undermining intrinsic motivation, a focus on grades can also undermine a mindset that's known as the growth mindset. What do I mean by this? Well, the idea of a growth mindset comes from a fantastic researcher at Stanford, DWECK, who's kind of studied the beliefs that we...
So I was just going to say, the growth mindset we've talked about, it's like, it can be life-changing, and it's why I thought this video would be good to watch, because it can apply to all of us, and not just the ones of us that are still getting graded.
We have about our own abilities and the beliefs that we have about our own learning. And what she finds is that people tend to fall into one of 2 categories in terms of their beliefs. Some people have what she calls a growth mindset, which she thinks of as very good. This is the idea that your beliefs and your intelligence and all your skills and all that stuff, it can be trained. You might start with some basic abilities, but those get improved over time through hard work. This idea that intelligence isn't fixed, you can kind of change it with some effort. That's a growth mindset. Some people kind of believe intelligence works like that. But other people have a different kind of mindset, which she calls a fixed mindset, which is kind of just the opposite. It's this belief that intelligence or your skill sets, they're just kind of these basic qualities that are there that maybe you're born with, and you can't really do much with them once you have them. You kind of just have them or not. And really what everything in life is doing is revealing whether you're like truly smart or truly skilled or not. right? Turns out people fall into one of these two different mindsets, but they have all kinds of consequences for how you learn and how well you do in school, and in particular, how you react to failure. Because the idea is that if you are a fixed mindset person, you're probably going to focus a lot on grades and performance, in part because that's your measure of your intelligence, right? It's telling you this like honest signal of what you were born with and your like basic qualities that you kind of can't change. In contrast, if you're a growth mindset person, you'll focus a little bit on grades, but only as kind of a measure of whether or not you're learning. What you want to do is see those grades going up. You believe you can do that through hard effort, and that means you're not going to focus as much on the outcomes. These mindsets also have other features too, which is that for a fixed mindset, you think, well, good performance just comes naturally. I'm either going to do well or I'm not. Whereas if you have a growth mindset, you're constantly thinking that, well, to get better, it's going to require some hard work, right? If I put more work in, it's going to make me even stronger. Fixed mindset folks see hard work as a bad thing because as soon as they have to work at something, it's revealed to them like, wait, I thought I was really smart at this, but all of a sudden it must not be. Whereas for growth mindset folks, hard work is really good. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to work hard at this. The more I'm working, the more this is a signal that I'm getting better and better over time.
I don't know if she'll mention this, one of the takeaways I got from Carol Dweck's work was that we are all a mix of both mindsets. So there are certain like skills or attributes that you have around, I'm so tired, I can't talk. There are certain things that we believe about ourselves are fixed and certain things that we believe are not fixed and can get better with hard work. So it's pretty fascinating. Once you start to get curious, you can notice in yourself like, oh, I have a fixed mindset around, like, this is absolutely mine, around math. It does not come easy to me, but I was told that, like, I wasn't, like, it just, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was, like, not a math person instead of being encouraged to, like, work really hard. So, yeah, so we're just a mix of, oh, guys, here we go.
Time. And so for fixed mindset folks, seeing effort is bad, it's scary, it's shameful. Whereas for growth mindset people, it's usually pretty good. And this leads fixed mindset people to do these nasty things where they kind of conceal their deficiencies, whereas growth mindset people are kind of liking deficiencies and making the most out of them. It also leads fixed mindset folks to hide their mistakes, which is probably bad, whereas growth mindset people like to see their mistakes because that's like, ooh, this is something I can capitalize on, right? This seems like the stuff that we're seeing, the fixed mindset, is overall kind of bad. Probably it is the case that in reality we're not in a fixed mindset. We know people can get better over time, right? That's just an incorrect notion of the way minds work. And it's also bad that you kind of see effort, as soon as you have to have effort, you kind of shy away from things and get really sad. It also comes with a host of kind of depressive symptoms, kind of worries about your own efficiency and so on. In general, it's really bad. But it also turns out it's bad for performance. It's bad for performance, particularly at times when you need to work the hardest, particularly at times where you're going to have to struggle with things because that's just the nature of what you're trying to learn.
Oh, these pop quizzes talk about grading. All right, what is a growth mindset? The belief that basic qualities like intelligence and talent are fixed traits. The belief that intelligence can be trained and that most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. The belief that some people are born with the ability to change and improve over time and some people are born without this ability. The belief that personal growth continues until you reach a certain age, at which point it slows and eventually stops. Oh, that was a good summary of like kind of the overarching limiting beliefs of fixed mindset dumb. Oh, I want to submit. Yes, you guys, we're intelligent.
And so that's what Carol Dweck and her colleagues have looked at. In all these different contexts, can your mindset actually affect your performance when the going gets tough? And so she did this in one context with college pre-med students. She measured their different mindsets, and she saw what happened when they had to take those pre-med classes that are not known to be very easy, things like orgo and so on. Like, do you just say, oh, that's it, I have a fixed mindset, I must not be smart at science, I'm out? Or do you see those challenges as something cool that you can kind of learn from? And so what did she find when she tests them? Well, what she finds is that people with a fixed mindset were more worried about grades than growth mindset folks. Again, it makes sense because they're like trying to see what their really fixed abilities are. And as soon as they did poorly, lost confidence and often would drop classes and take off. Whereas those with a growth mindset seemed to be concerned about learning the material. And in fact, when they did poorly, they ended up working harder. They realized, oop, I can kind of calibrate how much work I have to put in, and they did better. How does this result in their grades? Well, what you find is that folks with a growth mindset in the end had a higher final orgo grade than those with a fixed mindset, controlling for performance and science background and all this stuff. Another neat thing they find concerns differences in where you start and where you end. Because there is one spot where a fixed mindset allows you to do well, and that's the one case where you come in with a high grade and it's not very hard for you. When you come in with a high grade at first, this is kind of what you come in with on the x-axis and kind of where you wind up on your final exam grade over there. If you come in with a high grade, then a fixed mindset kind of helps you because you're like, yep, I'm really smart. I'm just proving that I'm really smart. And like you continue to have this belief that you're really smart and you're fine. In contrast, if you kind of come in and you need to do some work, a growth mindset is going to be helpful for you. What's the consequence of this? It shows that the only spot where a fixed mindset is good is if you're never really growing or learning. Like if you're good at something and just stay at that level, then a fixed mindset is good because you believe like, yep,
sounds like a terrible way to live.
And you stay awesome.
How boring.
But at anything where you have to actually grow and improve, a growth mindset is going to help you out even more. And so this is what they find. Is that growth mindsets show no decrease in intrinsic motivation when grades are bad. Fixed mindset folks drop a lot. Overall, growth mindset had higher grades, and higher performance increases, so both the final grade and the kind of slope of increase. Fixed mindsets, you only achieve good grades at the end if you were achieving good performance in the beginning. And at any point where your grade drops, any signal that things are going bad, grades get even worse over time. You see performance drop over time. And as you might guess, there's some emotions that go with this fixed mindset. There's more rumination about whether or not you're good at science and whether you're good at orgo in general. And there's a real loss of self-worth for nearly everybody who kind of drops at any point. Right? So this is bad. This is not a mindset that's going to cruise you through the science.
I'm trying to answer Charlie. Well. Yes. What comes to my mind is whatever you love doing. Like, okay, so this just might be my own bias, and I'm like taking your question seriously, which I understand is ridiculous. But my own bias is anything I love to do, or that brings me pleasure, like part of the enjoyment of it is like getting better at it over time, like working hard at it, learning more about it, getting more skillful. And that would require a growth mindset. So I think about like your painting and like all of the ways that you express yourself through art. Like, how boring would art be if we weren't growing, right? Like if we were never challenged. And this idea of flow being incredibly beneficial to our well-being, flow only happens when we're challenged, when our skill is only slightly outmatched by challenge. So so I took that seriously, Charlie, even though, all right, here we go.
It's also not a mindset that's going to cruise you through any spot where you have to have some growth. And so another spot where DWECK and colleagues have done this work is in contexts like in adolescence, like in the shift from junior high, from middle school to junior high, where you're going through things like learning hard math for the first time and so on. How do these different mindsets affect students' performance? Well, they tested that in 7th graders. They matched students with different achievement scores, and they tested whether they had a fixed or growth mindset. And you see the same classic things. Fixed mindset, those 7th graders are super focused on their grades. Growth mindset students are more focused on learning than their grades. Does this have a consequence for their math scores moving through from 7th grade on? Well, this is what you see. Again, this is matched for students' grades coming in, is that students with a fixed mindset, when they see algebra and this scary stuff for the first time, like either don't do any better or like can almost get a little bit worse, whereas growth.
So I was just remembering, hi, Mrs. Scott. Hello. Oh, it was a serious question. Awesome. 12-10, awesome. You keep growing, Charlie. There's no limit on your potential, my friend. So this reminds me of 7th, like, okay, she said 7th grade, so obviously I'm thinking of 7th grade. So I overall did really well in school, except for when it came to math. Like, math was very challenging for me. But I remember, like, I was still mostly growth-minded, and, like, in high school, I would give up my lunch throughout, like, most of my junior year to go to my math teacher's room and, like, work at it. And unfortunately, I annoyed the crap out of her. She did not want me there on her lunch break. Like, she invited me and then realized that she had invited me, and I was really going to show up. So I did this for a long time until it was so painful because she would just ignore me that I gave up. So she was conveying to me, like, no matter how hard you work, Catherine, you're not going to get good at this. So I'm there for, like, that's how I interpreted her unwillingness to, like, help me. But before that, in 7th grade, I remember, like, taking an aptitude test for math. And that's where they were, like, for the first time going to, oh, yeah, thank you for translating. That was the first time where our school was, like 7th grade had 2 versions of math. Like, the advanced students and the basic, the like, normal students, the average students. And so this test, I qualified for the average class. But what that told me was that I'm not good at math. Like, it gave me a fixed mindset to it. Whereas, like, if I had been put in the, like, there was just no reason to work hard at that point. Like, I would never make it into the more challenging class that I probably would have found more enjoyable. Whereas if they had put me in there, I would have just worked really hard. And I don't know, like, there's a lot here in our school systems that I think, like, I'm touching on that, and as someone who knows nothing about teaching or anything like that, I probably have, like, no real legs to stand on here except my own personal experience, but I was so terrible at 12. Yes. So I'm just like, what are, like, I guess this is my question then, like, what moments in your guys' lives, like, basically told you that you are limited, right? Like, in this skill or in this talent, like, you don't have any talent, right? Like, this is not for you. I am sure we all had some version of that. And I guess it's just kind of making me bummed out, right? Somebody, like, capped our potential somewhere, right? And by the way, like, who cares if we're good at something if it brings us pleasure in doing it or learning it? Like, oh man, we are shaped so much by our collective culture and our culture's beliefs, and we carry them without even being aware of how we're limited by them, right? Until something like this comes into our lives, or we hear something that, like, we meet somebody new with a different way of thinking, and, like, it finally, like, hits us, and, like, our brains start to go like open just a little bit, and our worldview starts to expand. Exactly, Charlie. Like, I, like, diagnosis, like, do that all the time to people. No doubt, right? Like, I guess that's the problem with, like, any label in general, is a label is constricting, it's defining, it's trying to say this is what you are instead of this is what you could be. Like, it's so problematic, and ultimately, like, maybe not, like, they're not, like, ultimately, like, they're meant to be helpful, meant to clarify things and, like, give us some sort of empowerment, but they often do the exact opposite. Like, we have to be able to define ourselves. Yeah. I love the 1110 awesome. I've got grumpy bag emote, and maybe 1110 is going to become something.
Mindset students are kind of seeing this challenge of this new math as a good thing. They're not getting a decrease in self-worth and so on. Interestingly, we now have some neuroscience evidence of the kinds of things that are going wrong in the context of the moment when you're getting bad feedback in these 2 different mindsets. And so Mangels and colleagues did this cool study where they used ERP caps to kind of measure people's attention over time and where they were devoting their attention. And this was the task they gave folks. They had students answering these hard questions on a computer. And the way it works is I'd ask you a hard question, you'd have to do it, you'd give your answer, and then you'd get 2 things. First, you'd get feedback. I would just say right or wrong. So you learn whether you got it right or wrong. And then after that, a second after that, you're going to get the correct answer if you got it wrong. And then what they did, at the end of this, you do all these hard questions. You think it's just like doing these questions. And then I say, surprise, we're going to see how much you really learned. We gave you all the correct answers. Do you actually remember them, right? And we're going to see how this varies depending on different mindsets.
No.
And so here's what these folks find. What they find is that there's a difference
Charlie.
in when attentional signals in the brain are on, depending on your mindset. So if you have a fixed mindset, all the kind of ERP signals that are associated with attention come on when I tell you whether you're right or wrong. That's when you're like, was I right or wrong? And you find that information out, right? If you have a growth mindset, in contrast, those brain waves kick on more when I show you the correct answer. You don't care as much if you're right or wrong. You're sitting there waiting to soak in, like, okay, what was the correct answer so I can learn something? And the consequence of that, as you might expect, if you have a mindset that's not letting you even look at the correct answer.
Oh, it's kind of like, does a quiz trigger the like apprehension, like I'm about to be judged, right? Versus a quiz being like, oh, I'm about to learn even more deeply. How cool is that? I definitely experienced the apprehension. Even in this, like that little pop quiz, totally felt apprehensive because you're all watching me, right? So, yeah, oh, fascinating. Fascinating. Oh, that's cool, Charlie. I love that because you're like giving them basically a piece of you, right? Like they'll actually get a really good sense of who you are through your work.
And that's what this graph is showing. It's showing in different kinds of conditions where you sort of like thought you had a lower and higher chance of saying an answer, or you just skipped that question. You said, I'm probably not going to know it. In all those cases, later when I retest you, those yellow growth mindset bars are doing better. You're actually learning the material better. And we kind of know why. It's like if you're so focused on the grade and your evaluation, as kind of as features of a growth mindset, you're not going to learn the correct answer. And so are we kind of at the mercy of our mindset? Some of you, I'm seeing a lot of furrowed faces. Maybe you had the intuition that I had, which is that I growing up totally was like all fixed mindset. I was like, I grew up and I was like, I'm smart. When I got to challenging things, including math, I like kind of was like, oh man, I must not be a math person. And this is the reason I still haven't taken calculus to this day, because I got so like worried about math and whether I was good at math and all this stuff that I kind of shied away from it. Because to me it was like, oh man, it's just a signal that I'm just like not good at it, right? So I grew up with a very fixed mindset. The good news is that you can actually learn to have a growth mindset.
Yay!
Which is good because basically all of neuroscience shows that a growth mindset is the correct mindset anyway. So we kind of have a false theory if you have a fixed mindset. But this is what Blackwell and colleagues did. They said, can we teach people to kind of get over their fixed mindset? Can we teach them to have either a fixed or a growth mindset? And they did this by just teaching students about neuroscience. And they either gave you an article that kind of showed a fixed mindset. They said, hey, you know, what neuroscience is showing is like you're just kind of born with something. If you're smart or you're not smart, like hard work doesn't work as much as you think. Or they give you an article that taught you something about a growth mindset. They said, you know, what we're learning is that anything you put hard work into, you're going to get better. There's no basic abilities that you're born with. It's all learning and growth and yada yada. So give students this feedback in the beginning, and then they measure whether or not their math grades go up after this training. Those same math grades that I just showed you before, this tough time in 7th and 8th grade algebra, where these mindsets can really mess you up. And here's what they find. Time 1, when nobody's learned anything. Time 2 is the math grades as is typical in junior high, where your math grades are kind of going down. Then they give you this intervention, and what they find is that in the control case, where you're learning about the fixed mindset, grades are going down even more. Whereas if I give you the information about the growth mindset, then I pop you back up again. I can recover your score just by changing your mindset, just by getting you to think that hard work is actually going to pay off.
That's so
and so
easy.
The upshot is that all of you guys who are worried about good grades are undermining your intrinsic motivation and probably messing with your mindset. What you really want to get is not good grades, but a good mindset, and a good that will deliver back to you the thing that matters most, which is your intrinsic motivation and your ability to learn this stuff. And if you're worried that you have a very fixed mindset and you want some interventions, mostly you just have to read about all of modern neuroscience, which is showing that a growth mindset is probably the correct one. But I can even give you the little blurb interventions they use for college students. You can just read that every day, and the data suggests it will get you better and better. And so that is sort of the second thing in our better wanting, these ways that we're kind of not wanting the right parts of things. What we saw is that we can want the right parts of good grades, we can want the right parts of a good job, but our mind doesn't really click into the right stuff.
Whoa! Okay. Oh, that's gonna be really loud, guys. Sorry. I need to adjust the volume. So, okay, like my big takeaway there is, besides just the overall, like, you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset around certain things, is that just learning that the growth mindset is valid is enough. Yeah, just learning that it's valid is enough to start shifting our mindset. And I have a Charlie mindset. Oh, yes, own it. Own it. Yeah, like, the other thing, like, she didn't touch on, so she basically said, hey, look, all of this evidential work, all of this research indicates that people with a growth mindset do better in life and they are happier. They have increased well-being. So that is true. However, we are a mix of both, right? And that's okay. And you can choose to have a fixed mindset as long as you're okay with that. You know, no one's sitting there in judgment and telling you what you should do. And sometimes, like, you know, like, there are certain things you can have a fixed mindset on and not be really the worse for wear because it just doesn't matter in your life. So you're at choice even with this, you know, and it's not, even though the story is very indicative that this is one way to increase your success and increase your well-being, it's not the only way. Yeah, and what the other part that, like, strikes me is the extent to which in my life I have been a part of giving people a fixed mindset. Like, I think we're all culpable in that. We're all perpetuating this belief, right, that a fixed mindset is valid, that, like, grades are valid, that performance reviews are valid, you know, instead of growth reviews or whatever the alternative, like, format would actually be or could be. Certainly if we have kids, like, the way we talk to children, whether they're ours or not, is incredibly indicative of, I think, whether or not they're going to have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. So it's pretty amazing. Like, we have these mindsets. We also create stories in the way we communicate with people that give them that mindset. We're powerful, you guys. And we all, like, this is the thing, like, we all are leaders. And, like, we all lead somebody, whether it's just a friend or, like, a team at work or whatever. Like, there are people learning from us. So, I don't know. Oh, Mrs. Scott, that's so cool. I am really happy to hear that. It should make a big difference, right? Like we saw in that research. Oh,